YouTube Frogs, welcome back to another complete guide, this time covering everything you need to know about our precious trainee forest ranger, Collei. We'll be covering her talent design, playstyle nuances and Dendro application, optimal weapons and artifacts, constellations, team comps, and a gameplay showcase. Let's begin. Our newest 4-star and second Dendro character released with Sumeru, Collei is a general Dendro support, relying on her elemental skill and elemental burst to apply Dendro with decent consistency and synergize with Dendro related reactions. She doesn't have any particular support synergies with elemental mastery, so her build path will be focused on a general elemental support. The strength comes from being able to reliably rotate her burst uptime alongside using her floral ring whenever possible. Normal attack, charge attack. For Collei, her normal attack, charge attack serve mostly an aesthetic purpose. Unless you're planning on building charge attack DPS Collei or physical meme DPS Collei, this talent will be left untouched. Elemental skill. Collei's unique ability, Floral Brush, throws a boomerang-like floral ring that deals up to 2 instances of Dendro damage to all enemies it contacts, one time on initial throw and one time on its return. With 211.7% at level 6, the total per enemy can be up to 423.4. It generates 3 Dendro orbs on the first hit and returns to the active character even if it's not Collei. It goes on a 12-second cooldown right after the initial throw, making an average for energy generation. You may have noticed its Dendro application from this demo with Fischl. Collei's floral ring seems to have no internal cooldown on its hits. Both the initial throw and return hit both procced quicken and spread. There's also additional Dendro damage procs surrounding Collei after the floral ring returns. This is her Ascension 1 passive, Floral Sidewinder. If any Dendro related reaction is procced before the ring returns, when it does return, it'll summon this Sprout Effect aura, which deals 40% of Collei's attack twice in 3 seconds. In those 2 attacks, I noticed only 1 Dendro application, making me believe it's on normal internal cooldown rules. Elemental Burst, Trump Card Kitty. Collei throws her own version of Amber's Baron Bunny, exploding within a field dealing continuous Dendro damage. It hits about twice per second and ranges from 6-second duration to 9-second duration depending on her Ascension 4 passive. Her Ascension 4 passive, Languid Wood, increases the duration of her burst by up to 3 more seconds if a Dendro related reaction is procced within the zone. Every proc is +1 more second. Now you may have noticed that her burst also has unique internal cooldown rules and not in the best fashion. Just a standard burst demonstration with Fischl as the Electro Enabler shows that Collei's burst only applied Dendro after each 2.5 to 3 second mark. There were a total of 7 hits in each of these durations, during which only 1 instance of Dendro was applied. So, during an extended duration of 8 to 9 seconds of burst, Collei's burst will only apply 3 instances of Dendro per enemy. It was definitely much less than I expected with the high number of hits. Her raw multiplier damage is not too shabby, at 282.6 on first hit and 60.5 per mini hit, with an average of 12 to 15 mini hits for a total of about 1000% burst damage. With a 60 energy cost and a 15-second cooldown, the timing roughly rotates with her elemental skill, and she does have medium energy requirement, especially since her skill only provides 3 Dendro orbs. Now talent priority is pretty intuitive. Elemental burst equals elemental skill over the normal attack charge attack. I'd value both her elemental skill and elemental burst with equal value. Though her elemental skill is ICD ignoring, it can only proc twice per enemy, while her burst can last up to 9 seconds. My current talents sit comfortably at 1, 6, and 6. Now for playstyle nuances and rotation tips regarding Collei. She's pretty intuitive as a typical elemental skill into elemental burst support character. As you guys know now, Collei's burst Dendro application is not the greatest. However, it does persist relatively uniformly over the 9-second duration of her burst. To rotate her Dendro application the best, in my opinion, proccing her elemental skill before and completely after are best interest. I felt that using Sacrificial Bow and High Refinement to feel the easiest for her rotations and keeping up with her burst uptime. For an autopilot playstyle, the typical elemental skill into elemental burst rotation will perform just fine. That's what I will be opting for. Constellations. So, for Collei, her constellations focus on greater quality of life for her. Nothing becomes particularly game-changing, and she has one that gives flat elemental mastery benefit off of her burst. Constellation 1. When off field, Collei gains 20% recharge. When running an energy recharge timepiece, this allowed her build paths to be 170 to 240% recharge instead of 150 to 220%. If you run Constellation 1, then her timepiece can be attack percent or elemental mastery instead. Constellation 2. This upgrades her Ascension 1 passive by extending the time from 3 seconds to 6 seconds as long as Dendro related reactions are procced. Constellation 3, Constellation 5. Elemental skill and elemental burst plus 3 levels respectively. Constellation 4. Activating her burst grants 60 elemental mastery to the team and not herself. Constellation 6. Each elemental skill now includes an additional burst clone dealing 200% multiplier value based on attack percent. For For the most part, Collei's Constellations improve minor things about her kit: recharge boost, A1 boost, elemental mastery for the team, and slight damage boost. Alright, let's build her up. Optimal weapon choices first. As a general elemental support, I tend to gravitate towards energy recharge weapons to assist with burst uptime. DPS weapons are also fine, but burst uptime will be heavily sacrificed due to her long cooldown elemental skill and medium cost burst. Available energy recharge options. Vonius Warbow, always a staple choice for general support characters to produce colorless orbs that benefit the entire party. Only caveat is maintaining a decent level of crit rate, usually about 40 to 50%, to be able to proc the passive while she's on field. With a self-sustainable 55% recharge, Vonius will easily allow Collei to reach 200 to 220% recharge for comfortable gameplay. Sacrificial Bow, a staple choice for multi-hit elemental skill characters that battery the same element type compositions. For Collei, this enables her with higher efficacy of Dendro application with 2 boomerangs per rotation rather than 1. Slightly lower recharge at 27.9% means typical builds with energy recharge timepiece will end up at 180 to 200% recharge. Fading Twilight, a recent event F2P bow released with Yelan. More offensive passive with recharge secondary means that Collei will be doing a bit more damage but less reliable burst uptime. Elegy for the End, the 5-star higher end supportive weapon that Collei can easily access with high hit count elemental burst. 50% recharge also enables a 200 plus recharge build path for more sustainable burst uptime. Available DPS options. If you're going this build path, I'd highly recommend that the 4-star choices be used at minimum R5. Alley Hunter. This grants high value on swap-based characters, which Collei fits this role under standard EQ swap conditions. Energy recharge will be supplied by artifacts. Stringless. This is the default elemental skill burst damage based weapon. Elemental mastery secondary stat. It's just a good stat stick for her. Moon's Moon. Default burst damage based weapon. On average, you'll be getting about 60% burst damage with your general team energy costs. Beyond this, it's what you'd like. If you're dedicating your Collei to hitting as hard as possible, the standard 5-star DPS options will do just fine. Very few of you will be building her in this territory, and I trust that you know what you're doing. Artifacts. It's been a while since we've needed to gear up a supportive character in the standard way. As an elemental skill and elemental burst based general support, and also a Dendro battery, we're looking at artifacts that assist the team in the same way. If you're running Collei to support a Dendro DPS, 4-piece Deepwood is the de facto option. It will take a while to gear up this artifact set, so for the most part, I'd recommend just taking whatever artifacts for now and using an offset energy recharge timepiece because that's all that matters for her kit uptime. If running Collei as a single Dendro support in general team comps, 4-piece Noblesse makes its return. Since Collei's elemental skill damage uptime is extremely poor, Tenacity 4-piece is not a viable set for her. So she'll go the old school standard, 4-piece Noblesse for generic 20% attack buff on burst cast. The Noblesse uptime is pretty good at about 80%. Now if you don't need Dendro resistance shred, or you don't need attack percent, but you need elemental mastery instead, then we have the 4-piece instructor set. It provides herself and the team elemental mastery as long as a reaction occurs. Dendro reactions generally have super high uptime, meaning this set will easily achieve 100% uptime. Now, if you don't have any of these 4-piece sets, I'd usually recommend 2-piece options, but for Collei, we're going a different path. Instead of running 2-piece options, in my opinion, it's much more valuable to force a crappy 4-set of above, instructor set being the easiest, and using the off-piece as the timepiece strictly for the energy recharge. This is because her own damage doesn't shine too much. It's much more valuable for her to buff up her teammates as much as possible, and just rely on getting energy up for her burst consistency. Now, for main stat choices, given that our kit is pretty generic DPS, no special synergies or buff transfer with elemental mastery, her focus can be a standard Dendro support. I'd always recommend the timepiece to be energy recharge no matter the build. Though the internal cooldown is not that great, it is her greatest source of general damage and AoE coverage for uniform Dendro application every 3 seconds or so. After that, I'd recommend just running a standard DPS oriented burst damage build. Elemental mastery would have been a great choice, but her burst reacts pretty minimally in comparison to the number of ticks. So, to summarize, in all builds, no matter what weapon you decide to choose, I go for energy recharge timepiece, and then for the goblet, Dendro is better than elemental mastery, and then finally a crit rate over an elemental mastery circlet. Depending on your weapon choice, you'll be hovering in between 160 to 220% recharge. If you're able to hit 180% recharge without an energy recharge timepiece, then you can opt for an attack or elemental mastery sans for more DPS. The circlet can optionally be crit damage if you're running a crit rate weapon for nuclear Collei damage, I suppose. That's mostly it. Collei doesn't have much innovation with her build path. Team compositions. As a general Dendro support, Collei makes most of her kits use either as an off-field Dendro applier or as a Dendro battery. She can immediately lead with her boomerang and plop her elemental burst before swapping out and allowing her team to rotate. As a simple quick swap character, Collei can swap in on any general Dendro reaction team comps that require a Dendro application. So for quicken, aggravate, and spread teams, most likely they will involve either double Electro, double Dendro, or both. In double Electro compositions, Collei serves as the solo off-field Dendro applier, with the last slot being either a Nemo with Viridescent Banner to boost the Electro damage or Zhongli for survivability and slight reduction to elemental resists. Most often, these compositions will have a dedicated Electro DPS, like Kaching, Raiden, or Yaimiko, and utilize Cookie as a secondary Electro for sustainability. Cookie can also be interchanged with a more glass cannon playstyle, opting for a double Electro DPS like Official or Beidou. In solo Dendro situations, it's important for Collei to have reliable burst uptime since their Dendro application is already limited to 3 per burst. In double Dendro team comps, Collei will act simply as a Dendro battery for a main Dendro DPS to guarantee strict rotations. Now in generic Bloom situations, we have Freeze Bloom, Hyper Bloom, Virgin. Collei will mostly be used as a solo off-field Dendro applier to make team space for Hydro, Electro, and or Anemo characters that will be generating the reactions. In these particular instances, just make sure to watch out for Collei's Dendro application as it is limited to 3 AoE times per burst on a maximum of a 60% uptime. In most situations though, no matter the team comp, my general rotation will always follow elemental skill into elemental burst before swapping out. Now onto a quick showcase. Here's an example of a Hyperbloom Ayato with Collei and Spread Tignari with Collei. Cue the music, Mr. Cope.
Lucky day. Boom. How's this? Lucky day. Perfect distance. More. See no more. There's one. Boom. To the berry. Finally. To the berry. Cheap tricks. You win. This cut down.
And that about sums things up. Collei provides one of our first avenues to general Dendro supports that allow Bloom and Quicken comps to thrive. A simple but effective quick swap playstyle and off-field Dendro application to assist reaction synergy. She has easy access energy recharge weapon choices and multiple supportive artifact sets that allow cost-effective builds only requiring basic stats. That wraps up my general findings for Collei. Any additional findings or updates will be in the pinned comment. Whether you are summoning for Collei or just getting the free one, I bid thee the best of luck. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, And as always, we'll see you next time. Take care.